At 18 months old, my entire family was placed into foster care. And at that time, we were adopted by 2 Buddhist nuns who just came to America. And we spent my entire life raised in a Buddhist temple. And 3 weeks after my 18th birthday, I would be incarcerated and spend the next 10.5 years in prison.
Calling from this payphone, your voice eats the pain, but it doesn't stay calm. Don't go away, that's what prison's made for. Made to break us both apart. Babe, I know your heart, but there's limits. If you gotta walk, then walk. Ain't no judgment on my end for real.
Home, man. My home.
And I know I got some
This is crazy, yo.
List of dirty deeds that don't end for real. But I'm a human still flawed. Never always right, but pain ain't always wrong. No, my mama tried, no, she loved me all along. All I got is you, you the reason I'm still strong for her.
But regardless of how well our foster parents try to raise us, we were still foster youth struggling to find our way.
I've spent a few Christmases, like, if not every year, every other year, going out and just finding Ma after we found out back in like 2014 at your place that Christmas was her birthday.
I'm finna make it all right, now you fucking here. Swear to God I'll make it right, now you fucking here. Me.
Right about a 1 hour
Right, right there, right there. Yep.
Yeah. Brown jacket, is that mine?
I don't know, but I
idea.
have a feeling.
After spending 10.5 years in prison and coming home, I found my family in shambles.
Happy birthday, man.
And now I'm doing everything I can to bring them all back together.
But fuck them all, I said we go ahead and beat the odds. I said we fight, and we fight, till we fight them off. Till my release date changes, whether right or wrong. Took my pause in my cell, put them in the song, yeah, fuck them all. Said we go ahead and beat the odds.
Los Angeles, California is often referred to as the gang capital of America. In it, there are an estimated 450 gangs operating with a combined total membership of about 45,000. 2 of the oldest and most ruthless gangs in LA are the Crips and the Bloods. They have been operating for almost 50 years and are responsible for creating a fashionably violent gang culture that has spread across the United States and the world. The symbols they use to identify themselves are bandanas with the colors red and blue. This is not by accident. These colors represent something woven into the fabric of this country's political psyche. They are symbolic of an underlying problem hidden deeply within the soul of America, and together these colors represent what is at the heart of our journey.
Dear James, I hope this letter finds you in good health and spirits. It's just breaking my heart that I'm missing so many important years of your life.
I'm trying to be what I'm destined to be.
I hope you and your father are getting along.
Niggas trying to take my life away.
Don't ever let nobody put their damn hands on you.
My back on the wall, now you gon' see it. Better watch how you talk when you talk about me, cause I'll come and take your life away.
The poor stay poor and the rich stay rich.
It's amazing to me that the people are just sitting out here and being just looked down upon all the time. The stigma that's been put in place is outrageous.
You know, they don't bother to look. You see someone sitting on the side, he's sitting on a blanket or in front of a tent or something, people just walk right by, just they act like they don't see it, right?
I think it's just about telling the story and giving them a snapshot in the Kobe and Mez role because of the circumstances and situations surrounding their living situation. It's about survival, and that's what this story tells more than anything.
Coming to prison, getting arrested, it made me get clean and sober. So it took away me having to think about what I was going to eat, where I was going to sleep, how I was going to stay warm.
Things like the penitentiary, right, are for society to be better, right? We get removed from society in order to atone for the things that we do, you know, so that we can be benefits to society when we return. That's what the goal of it is supposed to be.
The problem with being homeless is I had nowhere else to go. It sucks sleeping outside. So you try everything you can. You'll go anywhere. You'll do anything just so that you don't have to sleep in the cold. Sleep in the cold. Sleep in the cold.
We've been told deaf communities come in, so I made these booklets up for the officers. Yeah, that's alarm. Alarm down and get animated. It's a very animated language.
Can't do nothing about. Gotta find a high when I'm low, even if I gotta.
The last time I saw my brother, he came in on a visit, contact visit. There was a CO yelling at him, take your shoes off, take his belt off. And he didn't understand because he was deaf. And so I haven't seen him in 10 years because of that.
Most of the deaf people who use sign language were sort of warehoused in this remote Central Valley prison. In the last 2 years, there's been at least 8 homicides, and 3 of them were deaf or hard of hearing. They needed to be given the opportunity to move to a prison with more program opportunities, and that was San Quentin.
Imagine going to another country and not speaking that language. How's that going to feel? That's what it's going to be like when you come to San Quentin.
Hope for the best, but the worst is expected. I'm thankful for all.
Letting my brother down because I'm in prison. I know he's out there, and there's a lot I could do as a brother. I have to focus on what's right here, right now.
Living in the struggle, tough luck, gotta slap it out.
I just wanna be free. Wanna be the one that's empowered to choose when I come, when I leave. I just wanna be free. But I know that's an illusion. I can't escape all that I've seen. I just wanna be free.
They're dreaming, but they're not. It's just what's left of the system.
Talk to the light, climbing to freedom. I just wanna be free. I just wanna be free. I just wanna be free. I just wanna be free.
Keep the slave physically strong, but psychologically weak and dependent on the slave master.
I'm not known to be speechless, but Dante D. Jones. This is the one about homelessness and incarceration. Rasan New York Thomas, Friendly Signs. Tan Tran, Finding Ma. Brian Gunsolin, red plus blue equals purple. And Antoine Banks Williams, every second. D'Lo lives in LA and couldn't be here tonight, but he is thrilled to be a part of the film. And this right here is the GoFundMe for all of these guys. Thank you for buying your tickets tonight. If you'd like to support them further, the GoFundMe is a place where you can show your support. This is the first event of this gathering of films that we hope to take to other venues around the Bay Area. So if you know of other venues, please contact me. I'll put you in touch with the filmmakers. But this is the first, so we're trying to launch them with as much support as possible. We'll be passing a hat too if you don't want to use a QR code. So I am not going to ask any questions. I'm going to let Dante lead the Q&A, and he might ask these guys some questions, and then we'll open it to the floor. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for supporting their journey.
Yeah, once again, thank you everyone for showing up and supporting us. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you. Yeah, so I just want to start off, first of all, by thanking you brothers for, doing this with me, man. It's surreal for me to actually be here, right? Like we all was once upon a time behind the wall together, right? Gated community, yeah, right? Living tax-free, right? Rent-free. It was plush life, right? It was plush, right? But yeah, man, it's crazy, man. Look, we all here, so it's a blessing, man. And I just thank you again. I thank you, brothers, for doing this with me, man, and showing off y'all talent. Yeah, but yeah, so I'm gonna get right into it, man. So I'm not sure which one was the first one, because I was working, finding my. Yeah, the one that made me cry. Okay. So yeah, time, man. Yeah, so I just wanted to, first of all, my brother, we go back like 12, 13 years, man. We made I always say it, that we made a pact to actually be in this type of situation, and through the grace of God, look where we're at, right? So, Tom, you, the film, I watched the film before I came over, right? And it just every time I look at it, I get emotional, because it's like we all have mothers, right? And for the most part, we all grew up loving our mothers, right? And for you to be in a situation where there was this, as you put it, this love-hate situation, because you loved your mother, but you didn't know your mother, right? But how did that whole dynamic lead you to who you are today, and how did you was able to create this film to try to put that out there?
Yeah. Definitely went for the easy question, right? Not personal at all.
I didn't want to put too much on you, brother. Didn't want to put too much on you.
I'm just
it's kind of deep,
brother. No, I'm just messing with you, brother. It's a deeply personal film, And for me, and my journey with my mom, and why we did this film, is and a huge part of it was influenced by the men on this panel right here. When I was currently incarcerated with them, we were working in the media center together. They taught me how important it was for me to own my story and own my narrative, right? When it came to my mother and my childhood and the life that I lived until this point, right? Everybody had told a story about who my mom was and who I was, that I was stupid, that I was ugly, that I was destined for prison, right? That I was destined to die at a young age, right? These were the narratives that were told about me and my family, right? And that's why for me, when I was incarcerated and I had to ask myself, it's how did I get here, right? And one of the biggest changes that really spawned this film, right, is when I stopped asking myself, what's wrong with me? And I started asking myself, what happened to me? And that same line of thinking I had to do for my mother. When I was a young child, I was placed into foster care at 18 months old, as y'all know, right? And growing up motherless and fatherless, there was so much anger and resentment that I held towards my mother. And it wasn't until I was incarcerated and I found myself this flawed, hurt human being who had made plenty of terrible choices, right? It was only in that position that I was finally able to ask myself, what happened to my mom? And that was just what's wrong with my mom. And that simple reframe took me on a journey of learning about the Vietnam War, learning about Amerasian children, learning about the half black, half Vietnamese children that were abandoned after the war, and about how they came to America in the midst of the war on drugs and mass incarceration that led to her incarceration and 5 of my 7 siblings' incarcerations. And so that's a little bit about that relationship and that personal journey from my mom and this pain and turning it into some purpose.
Absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate that, man. Like, you know, like I was saying earlier, man, it's really emotional. You know, like, get it done, man, because, you know, it's for me, I think it's Oscar worthy, and I'm not just saying that. You're my brother.
How much money you sure to get it done?
500,000.
That's it. Anybody got 500,000?
Yeah, you know, just you know, drop it on the QR code. I get it. You know, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but
10% too.
Yeah. Yeah, they gonna tax me, man. I'm just trying to give it away, right? No, but yeah, my brother Brian. Yeah, so this brother has taught. I learned a lot from this brother working in the media center, right? When we first started, you know, we bumped heads a little bit because we were both like, you know, alpha males about our personalities and about trying to get things done. But through that, he taught me a lot about, you know, camera work, about just, you know, getting things done, right? You didn't know that, brother. I just wanted to give you that, right? Even though, you know, just by watching you work, right, I learned a lot, right? Just know that. So with this film, Red, Blue equals Purple, like, Special K said something, and, you know, something very poignant about how the brothers that grew up in the way we all grew up, you know, we all grew up in the inner cities, you know, whatever streets we from, it's all gang related, right? And just to be the pain that we felt, the pains that we go through and that we was dealing with, just the opportunity to be heard by those who was feeling that same pain is what kind of like brought community and what like drove the things that we did, right? And the choices that we made for each other, right? So from your perspective in making this film, like, what was your thought process of trying to get that out so people can understand like what we go through as men in the inner city?
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody that showed up to support us. It really means a lot. But making this film, I think the biggest thing that was trying to portray was that if you look at society, you see the red and the blue. That's what we see all day long. And the similarities with the dynamics of gang members and the political, in the politics, it's all the same. It's all the same. And I just want to let everybody see that it's no difference. You know, it's no difference. If you look at a person and understand how they grew up, then you can understand how they end up in the situations they end up in. And it's no similarity, especially if you look at now, society now, with Trump and all the things that's going on. It's not a mistake about that.
Absolutely. Whew. Yeah, don't bring him up right now. Just saying, bro.
But Kevin is here. Where Kevin at?
Kevin is here. You kind of, you know.
Kevin,
go ahead, stand up, Kevin. This is Kevin Sample. Kevin Special K Sample, please. Give him a round of applause. Yeah, man, this is a real deep brother right there, man. Wordsmith, man, is, you know, he get you. He get to talking to you, and you just be like, yeah, you know what, you right. Yeah, but Banks, man, Banks. Banks, this brother, right? You don't know, bro. I missed you in San Quentin. I think you had just left when I got there, but you're legendary in the ear hustle world, right? You know, yeah. So for y'all who don't know, right? So I had to write this one down because I wanted to make sure that I get this one right, because I watched your film about like 3-4 times coming up here, right? And what I gathered from this powerful story is that prison and poverty, death, and the feeling of desperation can be both physical and mental. We all felt that pressure at one time or another while within these walls and in our inner cities. So what made you want to capture that in this way?
Again, my name is Antoine Banks Williams. Antoine or Banks, either or is perfectly fine. I wanted to do this film in this particular style because I came to understand that even though we were free, we will never be free from our experience of prison. And so many of like my family members and friends would just be like, "Oh, how are you feeling?" And because prison is such an experience, it's visceral and it lacks words. And so if I were to tell you, "Oh, I felt like I was drowning," your idea of drowning would be different from mine's because they're two vastly different experiences. But what I could do is highlight how reentry in itself is a pressure, right? Like when you come home, it's like, get your bank account, get your ID. You know, you got to figure out like medical stuff. You get just all of these things. And if you don't have somebody that almost like walks you through life as you do children, as you do toddlers, and this is how you do this, and this is how you do that. If you don't have somebody that's extremely patient with you while you're still having this visceral experience with like sounds and smells and senses, and you know that we all deal with survivor's guilt, right? It's like, because we aren't the exception. We are the reflection of millions of men and women and children who are incarcerated and who are changing the dynamics of their communities from the inside, right? Like we are nothing extraordinary, right? Like we just had an opportunity to showcase some of our brilliance that was cultivated by men, women, and children, and volunteers and family members, and right? Like, so you have folks that's like, send letters, send pictures, don't forget me. Like, man, come back, right? Like there's this pull to get away. There's a version of yourself that's like trying so hard to run away from this past version of yourself that got you incarcerated. And then there's a version of yourself that's running towards this idea of what freedom looks like. Like, so every day of our incarceration, we are like chasing after this version of ourselves that's soon to be free. And when we get out, it's almost like we do, to some degree, everything we can to remove our incarceration from us. And we have to get to a point to where we just like accept it and be in one with the turmoil, with the beauty, with the struggle, with the pain. And then we can kind of like realize that we were, you know, given an opportunity, and now we have to take this opportunity and do something great with it, right? Like we have to tell stories about our experiences. We have to send pictures in. We got to volunteer. We got to go. But everybody up here like volunteers in the prison that we left, right? Like I went back into prison to put on a performance like 60 days out. Like it's that pressing to be in community with those that have a lived and a shared experience. So only men and women who have experienced the carceral system can understand those feelings, those tears, like that sense of loneliness, of depression. I only served 13 and a half years, right? Like, and that's an only. You have men that have served 30, 40 plus years and came home to like an entire community. And it reinforces this like core belief that community will always be the remedy to tragedy. So when something bad happens, like we have to come together and we have to be there. So we don't just come together to celebrate, but we got to come together to heal. And that even that applies to these different versions of ourselves that are existing simultaneously. Right? Like I have to be in community with that version of myself that is still hurt from growing up in prison. Like I have to be in community with that version of myself that's like, I don't ever want to see like please don't let me back into a prison. Like I'm not tripping. They want to send papers this thick. I got to fill all this out to go back in. Like I don't need to go back in. Like you are not, you ain't pulling teeth to get me to go back in. Right? Like, but I still have to be in community with all of these different versions of myself. And reentry is going to be that thing that folks face and we don't know how to prepare for it. But then when you out, the first thing you want to do is kind of go back and change things. So you get the end scene where it's like, there's a little more peace, but then you hear voices, let them go, let them go, let them go, let them go, let them go. Right? And it's like still trying to break the system, you know, like trying to break these walls down and turn walls into windows, allow people to see inside and just do everything we can to be in partnership with those that is still living with it and is still dealing with it. So I wanted to do something where I wasn't talking about it, but just creatively showing it, just feeling it. Like, and I knew a lot of people wouldn't necessarily get it on the first pass, but it's worth watching again. It's worth sitting with. It's worth thinking about. It's worth, because every shot was done with intentionality. Everything was thought through. Nothing was like, oh, this will be dope. Like, let's do it, right? Like everything was like, let's do it this way. Let's figure it out. And again, Reese, my good friend, this is like my brother. He had only been out when we started this project like 6 months. So it was still fresh to him. So all of his feelings and his facial expressions and the tears, like that was all real. And it's like we were still in community, like, bro, feel it. Like, bro, really, right, really feel it. If you're gonna scream, scream. I need you to like really scream and know what you're screaming for. If you running, like, bro, I need you to run and I'm gonna run with you, right? Like, so a lot of that film was shot just with me and Reese, you know, through different parts of Vallejo or Richmond or, you know, just different parts in the Bay Area. But that's why, because there's so much about this experience that words will do no justice in conveying what the experience actually was.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we can all leave now.
Thank you and good night.
Rasan New York Thomas. This brother right here, man, just to let y'all know, he was the reason why I came to San Quentin.
I would have told you to stay in school.
Right? I was in another prison, right? I wasn't out, right? I was in another prison. I was in CMC, and I saw Ear Hustle on 60 Minutes with the white guy with the glasses. I don't know.
Ted Koppel.
There you go. Ted Koppel, right? So I'm like, wow, these brothers have really got it going on in Quentin, man, right? And then I saw San Quentin News, you know, the newspaper, and they start talking about TLM and the Last Mile, which is a coding program right now. And I'm like, wow, man, these brothers got it going on. Then me and this brother right here got to talking about it, right? We sharing stories back and forth, like, man, look what these brothers doing, man. Like, we got to get there, right? Because we had started our own Toastmasters program there, right? We worked together and started our own program, right? And we made a pact, right? Like, man, look what this dude. We used to watch, you know, they used to play the Ear Hustle on the TV, right? And we used to always go back and forth about, man, did you see this? Did you listen to this episode? Did you listen to that episode? Right? I'm like, damn, right? So I'm like, once I got there, he got there before me, right? I was bull crapping, right? I wasn't on my thing, like I was supposed to be. But he got there before me. When I saw him there, I had to get it right. But once I got there, I beeline. It was like, do anybody know New York? He was a celebrity to me. Anybody where New York at? Oh, there you go, right there. He's on the basketball court. I don't know if you remember this. I came straight up to you. Hey man, what's up with you? I introduced myself, and you brung me down for flying kites. I think that's what's called. Catch a kite. He brought me. He like, man, you ever been on a podcast before? I'm like, no, but what's up? I'm trying to learn. Like I was hungry. Right? He's like, well, come down. And he did the podcast with me. But yeah, I learned from these brothers. Like these two brothers, they was like veterans in the media center, right? But you was the reason why I wanted to come, because I seen that y'all was doing something that was changing y'all lives, and that was changing what we were trying to do. Like we were just building planes while it was flying. We didn't know what we was doing, but we knew we had a trajectory. We was trying to get to where y'all was at, right? So I just wanted you to know that. You probably didn't know all that, right? But I just wanted to make sure that you knew that you inspired me to be better, right? To do something different.
All praise
right?
be to God. And I'm really surprised that Tyne was listening to Ear Hustle.
But the thing is that, but getting back to the movie, right? So I'm a alumni of Tommy's class, right? I took his course last year, right? And learned some sign language. I'm a little rusty, but I know a little bit, right? I ain't gonna go into it now. But so what inspired you to just want to be involved in this whole, the whole world of, people who do not know how to speak, but they speak through their hands?
Yeah, just in general, making films started as an act of revenge. I was in a bunch of documentaries, and one did harm and one poverty pimped us. And so I said, man, never again. Like, let's just make our own stories. And Wild Friendly Signs, I just knew Tommy personally. We're in a 1,000 Mile Club together. And I felt like, yo, this is a good dude. Like, he's such a good dude. This is a former, like, skinhead that walks through the black area and everybody loves him, right? This guy's different. Like, he's a really good dude. But he's also an example of why you can't classify people by crimes and decide they should never come home. It's ironic that the group of people who has the highest recidivism rates are the ones that the public are taught are safe to release. And the group of people who have the lowest recidivism rates, the public is taught to never release. Right? And for me, you can't go by crime at all. You got to go by state of healing. And you got to ask yourself, what opportunities did you give them to heal? What hope did you give them to heal? For me, I made my hope up. I just called myself a writer, didn't know how to write, started, search for God, started believing if I don't get to the home, at least I can get to the next life. But they didn't give me no hope. They gave me 55 to life. I had no reason to be better. And so for anybody that gives up, I can't be mad at them. I don't even know why I didn't. And so I wanted to show an example of somebody who deserves to be home, but he's labeled by a crime that says that he should be in there forever. And I just think that's not true. And I think what it takes to mediate arguments and be everybody's interpreter, to be the deaf community's translator or way to connect with the rest of the world, and wanting so much for them to have a better life that he gave up his own. He dropped out of school. He gave up the programs, everything that can get you out faster. He put that to the side for the deaf community. And I just thought that was amazing. And I also look at it as like, I didn't know the deaf community existed, and I was right next to him. Here I am, an invisible person, next to even more invisible people. And I wanted people to see them, see their good dude, see their humanity, and see their worth, the trouble, and the fun of learning sign language, which I gotta learn more of myself. But just getting immersed in that community through Tommy, and understanding that teaching the sign language class inside of a prison, like, he spoiled it. That's part 2, silent treatment. But we showed that movie to key people in the administration, and they gave them that sign language class finally. And last I counted, 96 people were fluent in sign language at San Quentin State Prison. And now, whenever you show up, whenever you show up to an event at San Quentin, the deaf community there, they part of the community. It's not even the deaf, it's the community. They had everything. They do deaf comedy. They got a deaf rapper. They everywhere. Every movie.
Westburg.
You know what I mean? They in college. They in G. They everywhere. They part of the community. They no longer isolated, and that's what that movie was meant to do. And I'm glad it did it, or helped do it.
So, our brother isn't here, but you know you deal with him extensively, New York. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to speak on Shoebox and what that meant to D-Lo and you know why he did the film. Would you mind?
Ooh, you tested my memory. He just did a panel during the All-Star Weekend not too long ago, and one of the things I remember, I might be messing you up, D-Lo. I shouldn't be speaking for you, please. I apologize in advance. But if I can remember what he said, it was something along the lines, he wanted to show the power of choices. But also, like, in Shoebox, you had two choices. But we always talk about, like, when somebody goes to prison, oh, you made bad choices. Think about the character in Shoebox. What good choice did he have? His mama in prison, his father in prison. He'd been beat up 3 times in one day.
One by his daddy.
Right? And so his choice, the right choice, was to continue to be a victim until he can get to college and find his way out the hood and hope he don't get shot by a stray bullet. That's the right choice. That's not a hell of a good choice, right? That's not a good position to be in. I remember my mom used to always tell me, son, if you want to make it in this world, you got to forget that life being fair stuff. Life is not going to be fair. Be ready for everything to be unfair. Get up earlier, work harder. And I'm like, Ma, that's crazy. But she was right. But I resent that. Like, why I got to get up earlier? Why I got to work harder? Why I got to put up with injustice? That's just not fair. So I think Shoebox does a great job of showing that, yes, no matter what, you got a choice. And you have to make the right choice no matter what. You can't take your problems out on nobody else. But that's damn hard to do in certain situations. And we need to understand that. And instead of having a world where people of color, people that are poor make it in spite of, we need to have a world that invests in each other and we make it because of. And when we do that, that's how America ever get the, we ain't never been great except for nothing but war. We really good at violence. We really get at incarceration and death rates and diabetes and all kinds of foul stuff. But check our math scores. I think I don't even want to make them a number, but we're not in the top 10. We ain't in the top 10 English, math. Chinese people got higher English scores. We ain't great. I don't know what we think we great at. Enslaving people? What are we great at, right? If we ever want to be great, we need to invest in each other. And last thing I'll end on is that my incarceration cost society over $2 million. Over $2 million. The last few years was $133,000 a year. I don't know how it just kept going up every year. I didn't do anything different. I was eating the same food. Right? Getting the same lousy medical care, but somehow it just kept going up. And when I think about that, and they call that paying your debt to society, and all I did was cost you $2 million more. And I always think like, wow, y'all spent $133,000 to keep me away from society. You couldn't give me $15,000 for a college education?
Well. All right, we're going to open it up for questions in the audience. Anybody got a question? Ooh, okay. Well, so his hand came up like real fast.
Sorry.
No, whatever you do, don't give me right here. I seen his hand first.
Could you stand up for us, please, so we can see?
Brian, it was great talking to you outside. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate more your film. I have a question for you, which is how different or difficult was it for you doing this film inside a prison or of people inside a prison versus a filmmaker who is outside a prison and has freedom?
So, how difficult was it for me to do that film? I started that film, and in the middle of it, I ended up getting paroled. So halfway through the film, we finished doing all the shooting, and then I got paroled. And so they end up finishing the film, and I wasn't there. So it was extremely difficult. And how difficult is it out here to do films? For me, it's difficult because just like what Banks talked about, coming home after serving 26 years of incarceration, having to deal with just everyday life. I know people take a lot of things for granted out here, but for me, coming out here and seeing how our society is was really heartbreaking. We have people out here suffering really bad, and I thought I was doing bad in prison, right? But I come out here and it's worse, you know? So that's the difficulties for me, and not having enough time in the day to really do things.
Thank you. First, thank you all for your stories and your vulnerability. I didn't hear trauma said once, and I don't think people recognize you talking about that you can't leave it. It's severe trauma. And one of the films, I don't remember which one, said something about, I'm going to forget it, but anyway. I wanted to ask a couple of questions. One, can you speak a little bit to the fact that we have a punishment model, a punitive punishment model, and the difference between that and rehabilitation or restorative justice, and the difference in the statistics when you look at a restorative model for recidivism? And if you can just add to that a little bit about when you come out and you come home and you've done your time and you've served your sentence and you can't get a job and you can't get a place to live except in Alameda County. I don't think people recognize that you're not done. You're not done. And what can we do to change that? Just a few simple questions. And you're all invited for dinner because there's a lot more questions.
I love that one. Can I jump on that one? I always tell people, I call tough on crime dumb on crime. It's the dumbest thing you can do. And the reason why I say that is the streets have the death penalty, and it's instant. It ain't no play, ain't no trial. You get caught slipping, you dead. And yet people are still out there. And most of the time, you don't even know the law until you're sitting in a courtroom and the judge is telling you some sentence you can't even understand, right? And so the law, it's irrelevant to like crime. Punishment doesn't help. And no one is incapacitated because they're in prison. They can still be harmful to society because it's like trauma is like a evil force that you can send home through other people, even if you never get out. And so if we don't have healing camps, healing centers, we're wasting our time. Right? Now, when people heal, in order to get past a parole board, you have to show that you healed. You have to prove it. And even after you prove it, they don't believe you, so you got to do extra 2 years most of the time. So sometimes more. But you really have to deal with your trauma. You have to be able to identify it. You have to have the insight, the emotional intelligence. You got to be able to articulate it. You can't just understand it. You got to be able to explain it. And when you can do that and when you reach that place, the recidivism rate is less than 2%. Right? And so we know it works. So why aren't we doing it more? I can't tell you, right? Maybe it's not, you know. They are starting to do it more in California, but there's still this focus that it needs to happen on lower level security prisons and invest in people going home. But I feel like if you change the culture from the top down, that's the best change. I think that it should be the day you get to prison, all right? And let me just be clear, I don't think there should be prisons. But I think there need to be healing centers. And I think we need to change our prisons into healing centers. And I think when we do that, we can bring home, I would say, 98% of people in there safely, and it would be assets to our society. There's 2% of people I just don't understand. I don't know what we do with them yet. We got to figure it out. But no, I know one thing. I know why I was in prison. I became what I hated. And so if we treat people inhuman, we becoming human. And that's why you hear about the bizarre things CEOs do, right? Some of them, right? You become what you hate. And so no matter what anybody did, we got to keep our humanity. We can't lose it just because they did.
I'm pretty loud. I don't know if I need the mic. But first I wanted to thank you guys for telling your stories. You put faces on people, thousands and thousands of people that society likes to throw away. They're done with you once you're in prison, and we know prison doesn't set you up for success when you leave. So thank you so much for telling these stories. My question is there anything that surprised you in the process of making films, good or bad, about yourself, your subject, the process, anything like that, anything that came out and was like an epiphany of some sort?
I guess I'll take it. Well, I wouldn't say pretty much of an epiphany. For me, I just thought it was just eye-opening, the things that you can find out about people, right? When you give a person an opportunity to speak about themselves, how openly they're willing to tell their story, right? Because a lot of times, you know, as Brian's film was talking about, like people aren't heard, right? Specifically in prison, like people aren't heard, and they're taught not to be heard, right? I mean, other people are taught not to hear them, right? So you could be screaming at the top of your lungs, like, this is what's wrong with me, this is what I'm feeling, this is my pain, and people just look at you like you crazy, right? Like, well, like, why are you complaining? Like, you deserve what you got because you got sentenced, right? And a lot of times, like, people see once the gavel strikes, no one is interested in what happens after the gavel strikes, right? They just, okay, you got sentenced, you got, whether you're innocent or guilty, it doesn't matter to society, you know, you are who you are. So when you give a person an opportunity to actually tell their story and why they are who they are, you know, it just, you know, community starts building, right? And you start learning more about yourself, because sometimes you see yourself in the person that's telling their story, right? Or you may learn something about yourself that you didn't know, you know, because you might can relate in certain ways. So that's what I learned about doing film and working with guys who are doing film. But then, you know, we start to see each other in certain ways, right? And we keep each other motivated and accountable to, you know, getting here, right? We all kept each other accountable in certain ways, and this is the fruit of that accountability, right? So I think that's what I've learned.
I got something I want to add to that. It makes me think of three things: being present, the process, and acceptance. When working with folks who have had unique experiences, it is so important to really be present with people, right? Like, in making this process, like, you ain't got time to be on your phone. You ain't got time to be checking your emails or your Instagram or all, none of that, right? Like, you got to really be there, because again, folks are opening up in a way that, if not seen properly, like, they'll shut down and you'll never see that side of them again, right? Like, so it's so important to be present in moments where vulnerability has an opportunity to shine. Process is how we envision things will never be how it comes out. And we got to be okay with that, right? Like, the life I live right now is not the life that I dreamt for myself. And I think that applies to every single person in this room. Like, being okay with the process and how things unfold is the way they're actually supposed to be, for the greater good, right? Like, to really bring a collective together. So being okay with art in a form that's not the form that you envision for it. It's like starting to, when you have a child, it's like, oh, my son's gonna be this, or my daughter's gonna be this. And it's like, what are you doing? Go this way. And they go do their own things, but it's like, that's their process, right? Like, that's a part of their journey. And art is the same way, same with filmmaking. And being and accepting is just knowing that it's gonna be okay. It's not okay, but it will be if we can do these two things before effectively. If we can effectively be present with one another, we can alleviate trauma, right? If our parents and our siblings and our community were more stakeholders and really present in the lives of those that they were proximate to, crime in itself will start to go down, right? Like people will be seen, you wouldn't have, right? Like people need to find love and connection and validation and respect and all of these core things that we need on a base human level. Like folks would need to, they wouldn't need to find that in gangs or in violence or, you know, right? And just trusting that process. And when we can accept that, we can see people for who they are. We can see the art for what it is, and we can take more from it than what we were actually intended it to be. So in making films, in being in community with one another, in being a stakeholder for folks that may be coming home, it's just, if you can apply those three things, you can create a world way better than you can imagine, or you can leave room for that world to grow into something that is gonna far supersede our wildest imagination. And I learned that throughout this process.
All right, we have one more question. Then we have to. Oh, skip. What? All right, we gonna end with you, brother, because I said you eager. All right, so.
First of all, I just wanted to thank you guys for taking the time and effort into doing these films and sharing it with all these people who need to be informed of your perspective and what you go through. So thank you for that. One thing that I loved about all your films was the music. And so my question is, where can I find this music? Is it on YouTube? Where is it? Because all the views, I know that views goes towards, or it can go towards making money for, you know, this foundation and this fund that you guys do. So where can I find it? Where can I listen to it? I need all the information from that, please.
Yes, Antoine Banks Williams on all platforms, but you can look up Maserati E. He contributed a lot to a lot of almost every film besides Tan. Tan, I believe you have a Spotify, and so you can look us up on all platforms: Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, social media. That's where you can find it.
What?
Yeah,
what's up? Yeah, you can find my music, Ton X, like Malcolm X. Yes, all platforms. Thank you very much.
So, unfortunately, the guy that was in my film, Samuel L. Jackson, is his real name, right? So that just wasn't up there like that. That's his actual name. He's still incarcerated, but he's incarcerated too. He's also dealt with homelessness as well. So where those words came from, right? He has experience in that. So he hasn't been able to get his stuff on Spotify and stuff like that. But that was all a cappella. That was him. None of that was like, you know, they just put it through the mic and just let him do him, right? So yeah, Samuel L. Sam Jackson. So there's no marketplace confusion and getting sued, all that, right? So yeah, but yeah, that's about it for that one. Last question, yeah. Last question. Stand up, brother. Let us see you.
First of all, I'm totally blown away by your incredible filmmaking. It's not what I expected.
I love that.
I thought that this was like a film school in San Quentin, but this is obviously way beyond that. So what I don't understand, or I'd like to find out, is there a film program in San Quentin, and where your art from that, or is this films that you made after you get out? I don't know much about the program itself.
Oh, Brian, you want to answer that?
I want to let you know that this question comes from a filmmaker and a film teacher. So.
You want to answer that?
Yeah, there's a few film programs in San Quentin. I want to shout out Banks. He was one of the original people for First Watch, which was one of the first film programs there. And shout out Brian Acey. He can talk about San Quentin TV. But the film program I came up under was First Watch, and we evolved it to Fourth-ish Productions at San Quentin. And we were all about creating film with the intent for impact and impacting legislation. And so, yeah, love that film program. That's where I came up from. But there's there was a lot of film programs, and want to pass it to Brian to talk about his.
Yeah, so initially back in 2008, I think it was, Discovery Station came in and did a film school. And when they did the film school, they left all the equipment when it was over with. And so a guy had this vision into getting our voices out. And so when I arrived to San Quentin in 2011, we had 2 cameras and 4 computers. And this gentleman here made some videos that got us some other cameras. And so since then, that was like in 14 or something like that. But since then, the program has just grown. Now we have a lot of filmmakers coming from San Quentin. And we done most of the films inside while we were inside. But the other films that like he done and Finding Ma, they done those on the outside. But it's all a product of the Media Center.
And then what I want to add to that is that since then, not only has that Media Center blown up and it's huge, it's the home of everything, Uncuffed, Ear Hustle, SQTV, Forward This, San Quentin News, it's just crazy. There's the San Quentin Film Festival that happened at San Quentin as well, and that was like a trifecta Sundance level festival inside of a state prison. And now there's media centers going to 5 other prisons in California. There's a media center in Washington. There's a podcast in Utah. Sing Sing is on the edge. They're trying to get them to have a media center, but it's spreading. It's spreading across the nation. So I'm really proud of that we're proof of concept.
Absolutely. And just lastly, there's San Quentin News has they started doing news programs, right? So they're coming from a news perspective. So the media center is like covering all bases, right? From all perspectives of film, right? So like the brother said, it's just growing, man. And I just appreciate y'all lastly for just coming out and just hearing us, man. So thank you.
Thank you all.
First of all, thank you for going through the trouble of putting this together. Thank you, Dante, for taking doing all the stuff us busy people who didn't help you with. And thank you all for coming.
So Miss Gail, so let me just say this, right? So she's shy and she don't like the spotlight, but let me say something about this woman, right? I call her my angel, right? Because she didn't have to do any of this, right? I was talking to her, she came, she interviewed me when she was coming in to do her documentary, and she just she had this idea, and she like, what do you think? And I'm like, absolutely. She like, do you have anybody you want to bring in? I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, yes, I know a few filmmakers that would love to do this, right? So, yeah, but she put her hard work into this, and this is the result. And I just want to say thank you, Ms. Gail, for seeing something in all of us, seeing that we can be more than what we are, and just being you, right? So thank you, right? And thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
I just want to say, I'm sorry, I can't.
Sorry.
I'm just like so blown away with the wisdom and the self-knowledge and the self-awareness and the articulateness of every single film and every single one of you. Like, people walking the street do not have this kind of awareness of their journeys. No, you guys, whether it was being inside, whether it was making these films, I don't know what it was, but you understand your journeys. And you understand yourselves, and you understand what it took to come out and to survive. And I know what you come out with isn't much. What you're given isn't much. I didn't know that until I started talking to Dante. I mean, you get a handshake and $200. Period. No, no. So to be able to come out and be forward-looking and caring so much about humanity and caring so much about each other and the people who are still inside, it's so inspiring. So thank you all for coming, and
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
One quick thing, if you're in the last 3 rows, if you wouldn't mind bringing your chairs to the room over there. We have a speaker tomorrow, so we can leave the rest of the chairs out. And, oh yeah, pose for pictures.